ass, homie.
Would you please break a damn story?
He took it out.
Oh, for you.
This is a one-topic edition of PFTOT because this is something we haven't really discussed. The reports and the discussions have all played out against the backdrop of Super Bowl 54 and everything else that's happening on currently in the NFL. And it's the CBA talks. It's the meetings that happened last week for the NFL Players Association. The meeting that is coming up this week, maybe today, who knows? They're being very secretive about it, by the NFLPA, the executive committee, the board of player representatives, one member per team, 32 guys, to talk about a 17-game arrangement under the next collective bargaining agreement. And Chris, here's the background that I think has gotten lost on a lot of the people who are talking about this. What's happened is the NFL and the NFLPA negotiating teams have reached a deal. They have a deal. The question now is selling the deal to the NFLPA. You start with the executive committee. They recommend it, if they choose to the board of player representatives. If at least 2/3 of them approve it, it goes to the rank and file for a final vote. And if 50% plus one of the 1,900 or so dues-paying members are in favor of it, we got a deal. But the only reason we're having these discussions, the only reason this is a topic now is because DeMaurice Smith, the executive director of the union, and his negotiating team have struck a deal with the league, and now they have to sell it to their guys. So there is a deal subject to the approval by the union. This is the way you go about it. The problem is they haven't gotten the approval as easily as they thought they would. They're trying to get the guys to agree. They pushed back on Thursday. They're having another meeting, and they may push back again. And the end result, Chris, may be that if the players don't want 17 games, D. Smith has to go back to the league and say, sorry, I thought I'd be able to sell it. I wasn't able to sell it.
I mean, you know, one, I'd like to know what the deal is, right? And I don't know, do you have any inside knowledge of what the added incentive is for one game? You know what I mean? Have you heard anything there? I know I haven't yet.
Well, there are, you know, it's 48% of all the money, right? It's and you would be interested in this if you were still playing, basically an elimination of the marijuana policy,
Okay.
like to making it completely meaningless. It's already largely meaningless. They would make it completely meaningless. You know, there is a list of items that they get if they agree to 17 games. The question is, what do they want? 16 games or the stuff they get if they agree to 17? But that list, all the things that they would get, the negotiating team has decided it's good enough. Now the union leadership has to get the right people on board to say, we agree. We'll take that and play 17 games. And for now, they've gotten the pushback on 17. The real question is, are they going to do 17 games, yes or no? And there's a surprising number of guys whose position is no.
Well, of course there is. I mean, you know, that's where, you know, one, do I find it a little insensitive that the NFL, who's telling us about player safety, wants to add another game? Yeah, a little bit. I also understand it's a business and we're all trying to make more money and increase the, you know, the overall number and all that. But the other issue, like number two for me is, yeah, I mean, the players are being told horror stories. You know, they're having to go home and hear from their mom and their wife about, ooh, you know, I worry about your physical ability as you get older, brain function, body function, joints, muscles, whatever it is. Players have more knowledge of all these issues now than ever before, and it's been pounded into their brain the last few years by the NFL. And, of course, by a number of other issues and things outside of the sport where it's become a huge button, you know, hot button topic. So that, to me, yes, I think you're going to have a hard time getting the majority of players to jump on this. I think guys are looking at it and go, damn, the sport's crazy aggressive as it is right now. We got more freak 290, 300-pound players flying around the sport than ever before in the history of football. You know, in the 1980s, there was Lawrence Taylor. He was 30 years ahead of his time. There's a Lawrence Taylor on every team now. And I don't mean that to like say he was ahead of his time. But now, I mean, we just watched the Super Bowl. What? Frank Clark, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, all these guys who are like 250, 260, 270 pounds, who can run 4.5, right? That's what I mean by the Lawrence Taylor angle. So the game has changed. And from the things I've heard from players, and I know you and I have interviewed a few, They all think 17 games is crazy. We haven't got one player yet that's been like, ha, I'm signing up. That's awesome. Yeah, I want another game. We haven't heard that yet, right, Mike? I mean, we had 3 or 4 players last week go, 17 games. Ooh, I don't know about that. I don't want to do that.
I had someone tell me last week that to a certain extent, the union and the game have become victims of their success in making the game safer, that it is hard to process the idea of playing an extra game given the hypersensitivity to keeping players safe, and it's making it a harder sell. I also was told that if the deal that is currently on the table had been on the table in September before players got beaten down, greater chance it would have been accepted, right? That the players right now aren't in the appropriate mindset in the immediate aftermath of the season to entertain the idea of adding a game to what they just went through, which tells me this, and we have to ponder how this goes, right? If this gets approved by the union, it's over. We have a new 10-year CBA. If the union goes back to the league and says, sorry, we weren't able to sell it, it's not like the league's going to say, oh, we'll just give you more stuff, right? No, they think they have a deal. See, and I've been through this before where when I was practicing law, you negotiate a deal with the other lawyer on a case subject to the approval of your client, and then your client may not want to approve it. Your client may want to not take your advice. That's the problem here. And I think the league's response will be, this is the deal. You guys can talk about it all you want, or you can delay a vote all you want. And it may be they delay a vote until June, July, or August. Maybe that's the end result. But they'd like to get it done before the start of the new league year, because when they get into the last year of the current CBA, that's when things get a little bit crazy. That's when rules change. That's when it becomes a little bit harder to do deals. And I think both sides have looked at the start of the league year as a reasonable opportunity to get it done, especially with Russell Okung planning to run for the position of NFLPA president, because if he gets that gig, I think he says, we're never playing 17, and if you want to lock us out, go ahead and lock us out.
Yeah, that's, and if the NFL drew a hard line about that, then they're not going to look good. If they're going to draw a hard line about, oh, we want 17 games, and that's the only way the CBA is going to be renewed, ooh, they're asking for a world of trouble, in my opinion there. They really are. And, I do. I worry about a lot of things here. I really do. Not only this, the player safety. Selfishly, as a consumer, I'm not so sure this is the best thing. I don't want to watch the divisional round. How many players did we talk to last week? I banged up. Yeah, I played banged up. Alvin Kamara, I finally got healthy at the end of the year. We don't even know how many guys played in the playoffs, not 100%, let alone guys we missed on certain rosters because they were hurt as is. Now to add another game to the fold, it makes me worry that, one of the 2 of the 3 best players on the Chiefs aren't available for the divisional round because we crammed in one more game in week 17, and now the playoffs aren't as good because, teams aren't as well rested and they're beat up one more week than they have been in history. All those things, I worry about all of that, and I want to see quality over quantity. To me, that's what makes the sport fun. When 2 really good teams are at their best, we get Super Bowls and playoff games like we just saw the other day, where there wasn't a lot of injuries, guys were healthy, and the game was amazing and gave us a few turns and craziness that we would have never expected. And I just worry about that being kind of hurt by an extra football game.
Yeah, and here's the thing. And this came up last week when we talked about Richard Sherman's comments about 17 games and the hypocrisy of the league pushing for 17 while also promoting player health and safety. And why doesn't the media call that out? And we kind of said, Richard, we do call it out. The problem is the NFLPA has negotiated for months based on 17 games. The NFLPA at the very top has led the NFL to believe that 17 games is acceptable. It makes it
Doesn't that
very
seem
difficult.
Backwards, Mike?
It makes it very difficult to all of a sudden say we're not doing 17 games when you've negotiated for months under the premise of 17. That's the most important thing that the NFL wants, and you've negotiated with them. You've engaged them. If this was a non-starter, a non-starter is a non-starter. It's a non-starter for a reason. You're not starting down that path. We're not talking about 17. These aren't hypothetical conversations. These were the negotiations that were done. And end result, you go back to them and say, sorry, we can't sell it. It's going to make for a potentially ugly situation. I think it makes it you suggested it would be difficult for the NFL to lock out over 17 games. It's not as difficult as it would have been if the union had not engaged in negotiations on 17 games for so long.
The NFL and union are just stupid then for that. I don't know what other way to say it. Like, to me, that's one thing where you go, we have a vote with the players first and see if they're even open to 17 games before we start to negotiate that. No deal is done right now. I don't care that they say they got a deal. The deal is not done. Just because a bunch of white-collared people in the meeting room said, oh, deal, handshake. No, the blue-collar guys who are going to be breaking their necks and backs and sweating, they didn't agree to crap yet. So they slow their freaking roll down before the players can get their heads wrapped around this issue first and then see if they want to vote on it and actually do with it. Again, I think the NFL needs to be careful. They can look very, very insensitive if they draw a hard line here in the CBA deals and just make it the 17 game the big aspect of why or why not the deal works.
Well, this is a big week for it, and they're either going to accept the deal or it will move closer toward acceptance with the Board of Player Representatives. And again, they have to vote it at a 2/3 supermajority for it to advance to the rank and file for a simple majority vote. We'll know based upon what we hear coming out of this. And I look at it this way. I think that if DeMaurice Smith senses the vote is going to fail, he's not going to put it up to a vote of the Board of Player Reps.
Right.
And this is one of those where you have to know your votes and you have to know the room before you cast the ballot. And it may be that a little more time passes, especially if bodies, while they heal, allow the players to come to the conclusion that they'll take the deal. I think that it may push it into March, maybe into the new league year. Maybe this is a deal that does get done before the start of the season. But, Chris, the other factor here, they want to get this deal done so they can pivot to the networks.
The TV deals.
And extend the TV deals. They want labor peace, no lockout. They want, I believe, I don't know this, but I believe the NFL would very much like to get the deal done coming off of the 2019 TV ratings, not 2020, which could dip during the presidential election. And also, there's a fear that a recession's coming. Well, you want to get commitments to major expenditures before a recession starts screwing up budgets at the corporations that would be buying these rights. It's a very simple process. The clock is ticking on getting the TV deals done, and they want to get the labor deal done before they get the TV deals done. I think that's one of the reasons why DeMaurice Smith and the union negotiating team has gone along with it. They know that it's in their financial interest to get this done so the TV deals can in turn get done.
Yeah, I get all that. I do. Yeah, and that makes sense. From the business aspect of it, it totally does. I get both sides there. But I think, this is going to take some conversations with players, their player representatives, and then letting it filter down to locker rooms to where guys are going to have to get their head around this and really think about whether they want to add another game. And I think that's iffy right now. I really do. I'd be shocked if it's passed. I'll just say that. I really would be. I would be shocked. I just don't feel like the NFL players are going to get behind 17 games right now at this point.
Here's the key, though. And this reminds me of 2011 because the deal that was on the table before the lockout wasn't all that much different from the deal that ultimately was done. So what you have to ask yourself, if you're and this is one of the realities of running the NFLPA if you're D. Smith. Those guys aren't going to ultimately choose to miss games. They're not going to choose to miss game checks. It's a hard thing for football players to do. We've seen strikes fail before. They want to play. They want to get paid to play. They have financial commitments that are premised on that money coming through. And if that's where it's going to end up anyway, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why D. Smith is talking about you got to be prepared for a 2-year work stoppage if it comes to this. He wants these guys to realize if they're never going to draw the line in the sand and take a lockout or go on strike over something like this, just do the best deal you can now.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not all that much different from the best deal you're going to do after you go through the pain of a lockout.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I do. But I have nothing else to say about this subject. I've runneth over. I'm done.
You are against it. Your cup is runneth over. You're against 17 games. I'm pragmatic. If the NFL wants it, they're going to get it. And no amount of yelling and screaming by us is going to change anything. They're not going to be influenced by us. They want 17 because they want another Sunday of football action. And also, if this deal gets done, expanded playoffs could happen as soon as 2020 if the league owners approve it in March. So more football. You know,
Yeah.
especially
So now that I mean, there's 2 games added onto the schedule now. You know, that's where to me it's, you know, they better be careful. They better be careful.
What's driving this bus is legalized gambling, and you need to have more things on which people can legally gamble. So more games, more opportunities to bet, and 17, I'm convinced, is just a stopover to 18.
Yes.
Whether you want 17,
Right.
whether you want 18, just a matter of time before. I think in the next labor deal there will be 18. It'll be 17 for 10 years.
Yeah, that's where they want to go.
And then they'll move to 18.
Yep, no doubt about it. I've always heard that was on their radar.
Hopefully we'll still be in the business then.
Hopefully we will.
All right, that's it for PFTOT. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you with PFT Live coming up on Wednesday.
See ya.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.